Welcome to Scale Model Workshop. This is a short supplemental video describing in more detail the Iwata LPH80 and how I use it for painting scale models. If you're like me, I build a lot of different things in various scales. The one thing they all have in common is that the surface finish needs to be as thin and smooth as possible to maintain sharp detail and scale surface finish. It's especially difficult when you're painting a larger model that's in a relatively small scale, like a 200 scale battleship or a 72nd Boeing 314, or in any scale when you need to get a scale gloss finish in and around difficult details that would prevent color sanding. In my videos on miniature spray guns, surface primers, fog overspray and bounce back, I go into detail about the causes for a less than optimum surface finish. The one air painting tool that I've been using more and more and has proven to be a real game changer for my finishing routine is the Iwata LPH80. The LPH80 is a miniature HVLP spray gun. It's more compact than most trigger-style airbrushes, yet has far better ergonomics. The LPH80 is available in a large number of nozzle sizes. There's also a wide pattern air cap available for the two largest nozzle sizes. For modeling, if I'm spraying paint or clear coat, I'll use a 0.8mm setup, and if I'm spraying primer or metallics, I'll use a 1mm setup. The big difference that sets it apart from other air painting tools that we typically use for modeling is the HVLP technology. HVLP relies on air volume rather than air pressure. The air pressure going into the LPH80 is only 13 psi with a cap pressure of 10 psi. The result's a great reduction in overspray and bounce back that comes with an air pressure system like a conventional spray gun or airbrush. Compare the character of the spray and the pattern of two air painting tools with near identical nozzle sizes. The 0.8mm LPH80 and the well-known Pache VL with the 0.75mm nozzle at 20 psi. The Pache exhibits the typical airbrush behavior with material concentrated in a central portion and an ever-expanding surround of overspray. On the other hand, the LPH80, with no air to the fan, produces a much larger pattern and an even distribution of material. The LPH80 is laying down more material in a broad pattern with much less pressure. The result's very little fog, overspray, and especially bounce back. Here I am using the LPH80 to spray Tamiya paint, thin with only lacquer thinner to the same degree that I would for an airbrush. You can see how easy it is to get an incredibly even wet coat of material. Without a buildup of coarse dry material, the surface finish is thinner and every detail shows through, warts and all. It's not more material, it's a more even coat that goes down wet. Whether a model or the real thing, an even wet coat is the secret to a professional finish. Because the paint goes down wet, the integrity of the Tamiya acrylic is maintained. The upshot is increased adhesion and durability, so I no longer prime unless necessary when I'm checking for construction issues. A closer look at the head of the LPH80 shows a significantly different design than that of an airbrush of comparable nozzle size. The nozzle wall of the LPH80 is much thicker than an airbrush. The larger outside diameter of the nozzle, in conjunction with the large volume air cap, helps create a larger area of low pressure than that created by a typical airbrush. Another very important design difference is this internal bevel at the tip of the nozzle. The area within the internal bevel is also under the influence of the low pressure outside the air cap. This allows for a pre-atomization of material, so that despite the low operating pressure, the LPH80 actually atomizes the material as well or better than a conventional gun using much higher air pressure. The needle of the LPH80 has a much shorter and more steeply tapered tip than the typical airbrush. The tip of the needle doesn't protrude beyond the nozzle so that during operation it remains within the nozzle, making tip dry a non-issue. The LPH80 has all the standard spray gun adjustments for airflow, material flow, and fan pattern. However, since air pressure adjustment's more critical with an HVLP gun, you want to open the airflow adjustment all the way and rely on your gun gauge or regulator. Using the LPH80 with model paints and no amount of fan pattern is as simple as any airbrush. I found that I can use a regular airbrush hose with a 1/4-inch fitting and the regulator set at 13 psi. Remember, air pressure is measured with airflow, but no material flow. If you're going to be cranking on the fan, or if you're using heavier materials such as professional auto refinishing products, the CFM requirement's more critical. So I'd use a proper setup with a larger diameter hose and a gun gauge. In either case, you'll want to use some sort of tank air supply that can ensure a constant CFM. Painting with a spray gun requires a different technique, and just like an airbrush, you should allow yourself some time to practice. Learn how to develop a rhythm and a pace that matches the amount of material that's being applied. For additional information on how to use a miniature spray gun, refer to my video on miniature spray gun operation. As a final footnote, I want to publicly acknowledge and thank Kirk Liebecker. Kirk is a very well-known airbrush artist and airbrush technician at Iwata Medea. I became acquainted with Kirk about 6 years ago when I was researching technical information on Iwata airbrushes for my original airbrush series. He suggested using the LPH80 in place of the RG2 that I'd been using for a long time, and it's been a tool that never ceases to amaze me. So long for now, and I hope to see you next time.